In a faraway slice of the megaverse, the inhabitants of Flova are preparing for a mission to a mysterious, primitive planet. What they find there will change the course of their history forever. And maybe yours, too. Put on some headphones and harness the power of your imagination with the illustrated podcast, Flovatar, a Dust Odyssey. The web of baubles that made up the harnessed crew of sparks started to twist and melt, oozing into the meta highway. Gellin buzzed in his spark form, moving rapidly through space inside the reinforced sphere. He couldn't see the direction he was headed, not clearly at least, but he was extremely aware of the dust energy around him, steadily increasing in its intensity. He perceived blue lights rhythmically blaring bright, then dark behind cylindric casings. He could feel the power flowing through all the connecting straps, building and building. They were traveling faster than he had ever thought possible. The 3-inch thick reinforced glass spheres started to warp and refract light into a new spectrum of colors previously beyond his capacity. Gellin soaked it all up as he marveled at the now viscous show of glowing pigments leaking and seeping into each other. He was almost hypnotized. The physic bending acceleration made all sense of reality lose its solid structure. Alarms blared. The meta-enforced harness was at its breaking point. The dust-charged straps, belts, and ties vibrated with power, threatening to snap. The little sparks that flared up along the bindings looked like blue night flutterflies as the formerly indestructible material from Flova started to fray. Gellin was too overwhelmed to panic. If this was going to be it, at least he went out doing something noble. Franklin, encountering similar reactions in her spark form, knew that this was one of the theorized possibilities. The boosters, Flova Labs' latest release, worked perfectly boosting dust during production at the sluice factory, but hadn't been totally tested in unstable environments. The booster's cores contained crystals mined from Biosphere 16 and had blown up a few lollyrigs during the extraction process. But it was this same volatile power that made long-distance meta-highway travel a possibility. Thankfully, due to her research into stabilizing the power cores, she was confident the boosters would withstand the external stress and get them to Earth. Getting everyone back to Flova, that was another matter. Regret seeped into her subconscious as she started to rethink her short speech to the group before they left. Maybe she should have prepared them for what was possible, at least what was probable. She recalled a conversation she had with her mom a week before the mission.
I keep reminding Damas we've never attempted to travel like this, at least not in an official capacity. We can run all the numbers and situations, but the outcomes are nearly infinite. And there's always the chance that the dust doesn't behave the same way on Earth or the boosters malfunction. There are too many factors.
Reno Franklin paced around her home, tapping her index fingers together 1, 2, 3 times. Ray didn't look up from scanning through pages of notes on a holographic screen.
Well, then luckily I'll be there and aware of most of the potential outcomes.
Color drained from Reno's face.
Yes, I suppose. You don't have to go, you know. There are other scientists going.
I can't rely on them to analyze the right things, let alone bring back useful data.
Ray countered.
Ah, I see the outlier here. The temperature of sluice needs to be 0.1 degree cooler to account for heat from a Flovan's hand.
I wish we would consider if this is all worth it.
Franklin jerked back to reality when she heard an odd bellow ring out from another spark chamber. It rolled into a higher and higher pitch until it squeaked to a pop. A sphere burst into a firework of electrified glass. The spark inside flew out into the exposed meta highway. Another hum groaned and squealed before disintegrating. then another. A symphony of breakage erupted as more and more sparks were released. In the open travel of the meta highway, thousands of sparks hurtled towards their destinations even faster than before. Sparks scattered and disappeared into the membrane of the flux to the new planet, landing at different locations around the glowing orb. On Earth, a bald Flovan with weary eyes and a curly beard carefully picked through a monstrous garbage heap. A small, worn, black plus sign embedded in gray plastic winked at him from underneath an outdated iPhone. Most of the logo had been rubbed off with time and use, but he could still make out the letters G, B, and Y under its screen. He pulled it out with the delicateness of extracting a slime crystal and gently touched a red button.
Oh, my Flagolian! It's in near perfect condition!
He couldn't help but say out loud. He had been waiting for this moment, and it came just in time. 2 days before a portal to his next destination, another time and another place, was meant to open. He held it to the sky and announced,
Thank you, ignorant idiot! Whoever you are for throwing away this priceless artifact and saving my ass.
When something shone in his peripheral vision. For a split second of dread, he thought he must have miscalculated the date of the big event he'd been waiting so long for, but then realized it was a meteor shower. He brought his arm up to shield his eyes from a new source of brightness in the sky, counting 6 flaming balls rapidly descending towards the garbage dump below. Marveling at the natural spectacle unfolding above him, he failed to notice that one of the orbs was heading straight towards him at a rate of 10 flops. He attempted to jump to his left, but losing his footing, he fell into a heap of discarded CDs while the orb crashed into a nearby vintage green iMac monitor. The smoking orb flashed and audibly whirred as it shifted into its reanimation sequence. A blinding flash faded to reveal a dazed-looking Flovan with acid green skin and X-like pupils, wearing a blue transit suit with the name badge Gellin stitched over the left front chest pocket. Regaining his bearings, Gellin surveyed the scene around him and noticed the bald Flovan laying flat in the garbage next to him.
Oh, Flogolly, are you hurt?
The bald Flovan remained silent, staring at Gellin with equal measures of surprise and suspicion.
Can you see me?
Gellin continued, as he wondered whether the bald Flovan may be concussed.
How many fingers am I holding up?
2. Sorry. Seems as though I lost myself for a second there.
The bald Flovan replied, lifting himself up with a wince.
We're lucky we survived that crash landing at all. Well, this looks like where the inhabitants of Earth go to dispose of all their unwanted goods. I'm Gellin, Academy Cadet, first class.
I'm Nick.
The bald Flovan replied, taking Gellin's hand and lifting it above their heads, as is customary for all Flovans. Gellin paused.
Where's your transit suit?
He asked, looking at Nick's non-regulation blue overalls. Before Nick could respond, they both heard a crash from a nearby section of the dump, quickly followed by a cry that grew louder and louder, unmistakably calling for help.
Maybe that's another one of us,
Gellin said, darting off in the direction of the noise. They followed the sound and looked up to spot an orange Flovan in a white suit stuck at the top of a mound of children's toys, clothes hangers, and soda bottles, a few half filled with golden, earthly fluid. The bald Flovan narrowed his eyes.
Oh dear, they're at the top of the rejected plastic section.
So, I've saved folk from worse,
Gellin retorted. The Flovan waved her arms over her silvery green, curly-haired head. Gellin picked up a section of discarded rope.
They look stuck. I've got to help them. Hello, hey, it's me, Gellin. And Nick, we're here to help, so just hold on.
Gellin yelled to the writhing Flovan at the pinnacle of the trash pile.
Stuck!
Gellin couldn't hear exactly what she was saying from the ground, but his eyes gave a silent plea to Nick. Nick sighed and spoke up.
Don't panic up there, and don't open those bottles.
He tied a rope around a post, labeling the plastic recycling, and then handed the other end to Gellin.
Just make sure you avoid anything with a bright color and 3 holes, or you'll be mesmerized with their spinning for hours. I'll pull you out with this if you get stuck,
he explained, testing the rope's strength with a couple of sharp tugs.
Why? Wait, me?
Can't both go. What if we all get stuck? Plus, you said it. You've saved Flovans from worse. Should be easy for you.
Nick replied, winking. Gellin paused, then nodded solemnly. This was his duty. He cracked his knuckles and stepped into the trash. Instantly, something started to seep into his suit and boots.
Oh, what is this slime? Oh, it smells awful.
That will be the ammonia. Smells bad, but it's harmless. Trust me. Just breathe through your mouth.
Gellin took random gasps of air as he plowed upward through armless dolls, clear bottles, and colorful rectangles that looked like bricks, but hurt when he stepped on them. He briefly wondered why Earthlings would throw these things out. They seemed like perfectly useful objects still. He winced suddenly as he snagged his face on something sharp. Maybe he shouldn't lament the disposal of these objects after all. Higher and higher he climbed until he nearly reached the source of the cries. To his surprise, it was Franklin, the younger scientist who had addressed his group before the launch. Although now, with silvery hair and covered in orange slime, she looked more like a sunburned version of her mother. He saw her foot had been caught in some sort of dark green throne, and he easily pulled it out, ignoring her responses. He assumed it was some sort of thanks. He handed her the end of the rope when he heard a faint, muffled hum from further away. Another Flovan that would need help, perhaps. They will have to wait, he thought. He could only save one at a time.
All right, listen to me.
He told her in his most official voice.
Hold on to this rope so we don't go rolling down like a lakey and we can go down together. Slowly. It's slippery up here.
No, not slowly. Quickly, as fast as possible.
She wheezed.
Have you seen this lineup of weapons humans have thrown away here? No way I'm rolling down this hill.
She pointed over her shoulder, and Gellin's eyes doubled in size as he finally saw what she had spotted early. A human was steering a yellow vehicle with what could only be described as a giant shovel on the front of it. It was roaring loud, redirecting everything in its path, and headed right toward them. Gellin peered over the other side and saw a maze of dangerous plastic. Without his typical AT device, his heroism was replaced by paralyzing panic. Suddenly, the not-quite-rescued Franklin began blindly digging around her area, sigh after sigh, until she finally found something of interest. It was as long as she was tall, had curved edges with a smooth underbelly, and straps on the top.
I think we can use this,
She said, examining it inches from her nose.
How?
Gellin shouted.
Why are you yelling?
She said, in a slightly annoyed tone.
I studied the laws of Earth physics before we came here. I think with the right push and enough of this slime, we can use this to safely ride down in a hurry. Humans use this when it snows.
What in the flying fluke is snow?
Franklin sighed and flipped the snowboard onto its slick belly.
You sit in the front and steer. I'll take a few steps back and run towards you. When I do, push off with your legs and hold on tight,
She instructed Gellin. She jumped on the back of the board only a moment before the giant shovel and its human wrangler smashed into the edge of the mountain of abandoned plastics. Moments later, Gellin and Franklin cruised right in front of a mildly impressed Nick. Franklin brushed herself off like it was any regular Moon's Day as she casually tossed the rope back to Nick. Gellin looked like he had taken one too many turns on a lobby ride during the Lunar Festival.
Luckily, it seems Earthlings prefer to throw away perfectly good transportation devices.
Franklin explained.
Speaking of, have you seen my translator? It should have landed somewhere near. We'll want to take coordinates of where we store them.
Gellin and Nick peered at Franklin before Gellin exclaimed.
We need to get her somewhere she can get that toxic stuff off. It's turned her orange.
Franklin let out a slightly annoyed snort.
Well, you're green.
What? I'm not.
Gellin took off a glove, but only proved her right.
I'm green?
And your eyes are weird.
She puzzled, standing up to inspect his face.
Why didn't you say anything?
Gellin asked Nick.
I thought you knew. Also, I didn't want to freak you out. Seemed like everything was stressful enough already.
Well, regardless, thank you both for attempting to save me.
She said, while sniffing one of her slime-covered hands.
I'm Franklin, and I'm one of the lead scientists on the mission.
She held out her hand, and they lifted their joined hands together.
Gellin, cadet volunteer recruit.
She held out her hand to Nick, but he was too mesmerized by her face to respond. He looked as if he was searching for someone behind her orange skin. Gellin elbowed him.
My Nick is name. Sorry, my name is Nick. My nickname, if you will.
Nick grinned.
I'm an engineer.
An engineer? That's interesting. What submission were you assigned?
Submission? I'm more of a dom.
What? DOM, huh? What division is that?
Asked Franklin.
Do you hear that?
He held a cupped hand to his ear. Faintly, in the distance, they heard,
Let me fluking go!
dissolve into the wind.
I think it came from the fabric cans.
Nick pointed to a large, corrugated iron wall with a paint-flaking roof of similar material. Sensing their confusion, he explained.
Behind the folded sheet metal.
They picked their way through the trash to the row of square metal fabric cans, and right at the end was a droid with a black mohawk, holding a lid firmly shut.
Help!
A scream rang from inside.
I will not help. Do not stay calm.
Ugh! I won't be calm until you open the lid. So just go away so I can get out.
I will not just go away.
The droid held the handle firm.
Droid, what's your name?
Franklin called out as they rushed over to the commotion.
FL01D Senior Dust Processing Droid.
FLO1D? How did you get such a ridiculous hairstyle? Huh. Even droids are altered by the process.
Hello? I'm still in here. Being held captive by a fuse-blown metal dictator. Must be last year's model.
Lamented the voice.
Fasco, that you? Silly kid, how did you get in there? I'll get you out. FLO1D, let go of the handle.
Gellin ordered in his most soldierly voice.
I will not let go of the handle.
FL01D smiled and nodded in agreement.
You know what? This is ridiculous. Let's just call him Floyd. Floyd, this is Senior Scientist Franklin. Step away now.
Floyd acknowledged her seniority with a clap of his hands. Captive Fasco took the chance to push open the lid from inside the chute. A flash of purple hair and a purple face appeared before being shoved back down with the slamming close of the cover.
Ow! Please, please, get this droid to let me out. It smells in here.
FLO1D, jump up and down.
Gellin ordered. Franklin looked at him, puzzled.
I will not jump up and down.
Floyd replied, not moving. A purple hand forced its way out and waved.
I think I know what's going on. Try to tell him what not to do.
FLO1D, don't jump up and down.
I will not don't jump up and down.
Floyd replied, and started to jump up and down while still holding the handle, causing him to violently shake the container.
That's not helping.
The voice inside cried.
Sorry, FLO1D, don't stop jumping.
The droid stood still.
And don't let go of the handle.
He let go of the handle. Franklin held her breath.
Okay, now FLO1D, stand right next to the container.
Floyd took a step back.
It's clear. Come on out.
Franklin called, but Floyd responded.
I will not come on out.
Floyd climbed inside the fabric can as the prisoner was attempting to escape the same way.
FLO1D, don't get out of the can and come stand next to this guy.
Gellin ordered. Floyd poked his head out to observe where Gellin was pointing before climbing down and standing next to Nick. Franklin opened the chute as Nick examined Floyd's control panel.
Curious. You must have experienced a power surge that has made every directive come through as oppositional. I'm just gonna see if I can...
Nick tried to instigate a system reset.
Error? That's not right.
He continued fiddling until a hiss and a pop.
Oops.
Franklin put out her hand and pulled a violet-colored Fasco out of the can. She looked like a talking purple berry as she muttered to no one in particular about how difficult it was to function without AT.
When will my AT start working?
She asked Franklin. Doing a double take, she blurted out.
What happened to your face?
She put her hand over her mouth immediately, realizing she had insulted a scientist. Literally the last thing she wanted to do. Franklin cracked a smile.
Rude. Mine's just a different color. He's the one with weird eyes.
Pointing to Gellin.
Your AT is recalibrating to the environment. I estimate it'll take at least one Earth day to totally catch up to the variables here.
She peered into the container and saw purple sheets and lavender curtains jumbled up near the chute.
I think your color has something to do with how you landed. Look beneath your gloves.
She did, as they walked to the others.
Fasco, kid, I hate to break this to you, but...
Started Gellin.
I know. I'm purple.
System reset failed.
Nick said, tapping on a motionless Floyd.
Of course it did. Dustbots on the mission can only be reset with tech on Flova to ensure the mission objectives aren't hindered. You should know this as an engineer.
Franklin sighed.
He's stuck like this until we get back.
Where do we go now? What's our submission directive?
Fasco asked, Turning instinctively to Franklin, Franklin reached into a pocket of her spacesuit and pulled out an ultra-thin metal rectangle that was the length of one of her fingers.
Smart. I do all my best thinking after a quick light-up, too.
Franklin looked at him quizzically as he flipped open its top. Instead of a flame, a 3D hollow avatar that looked like a golden cousin of Floyd's appeared. Gellin and Fasco pulled out their own versions of the object. On the back of each of them gleamed a name, C3 Philosophlo.
Greetings, Ray Franklin. Welcome to Earth. Point me in the direction of anything on Earth to learn more about it. Your submission is to find and collect dust. Use your provided dust detectors to collect the optimal amount of dust, and your dust extractors to bring it home.
The rest of the avatars echoed the first.
Find and collect dust.
Our only objective right now is to find dust. And that's fitting because we're gonna need all the energy we can get. I assume all your harnesses disintegrated when you landed here. I regret to inform you all that shouldn't have happened. Booster malfunction. We need to work on a safe way home,
Franklin ordered. Fasco looked like she might throw up. Gellin's eyes widened until the X's on them took up half his face.
Hang on. You're saying we might never get home?
Gellin choked out.
Oh, not without dust. I'll need it to repair the part of your pods where the boosters blew, or I can't guarantee we'll make it back to Flova. Now get your detectors.
She glanced at Floyd, paused, and then held her detector up in the air and pointed at it. All but Nick and Floyd pulled out handheld dust detectors.
Where's yours?
Gellin asked Nick.
Mine's? I lost some of my tech when I landed.
Nick was interrupted by a melodic whistling sound, bubbling out of a towering chimney.
Are there more of you? Or us? That's coming from the incinerator. What in the Flova's flink is someone doing in there?